Hello friends, welcome back to another Storytime with the LA Conservancy. As a reminder, if you'd like to learn about the other Storytime recordings, go ahead and click a link in our bio. Today we're going to be learning about a special historic place that is found in the city of Watts, California. What is this place? Well, it's called the Watts Towers. And not only are the Watts Towers historic and a special place for the city of Watts, they're also considered artwork. They were created by artist Simon Rodia, and it took him 34 years to work on this project. Why did Simon create this artwork, and why is it important for the city of Watts? Well, we'll learn the answers to these questions as we read our story. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you all a question. Have you ever noticed public art in your neighborhood? If so, why do you think it's there? Similar to how places tell a story of a person, a place, or event that might be around, artwork also tells us a story as well. So let's go ahead and learn about the Watts Towers in today's book, which is titled Dream Something Big, The Story of the Watts Towers, written by Diane Huston, and the collages are by Susan L. Roth. One chip of tile. Uncle Sam held it in his hand, studying it, his imagination turning like a kaleidoscope. He put it in his pocket. "I'm going to do something big," I heard him say. I didn't know it then, but that single chip of tile was no longer trash. It was the first building block to a candy-covered castle. Uncle Sam was my neighbor. His name was Simon, but we never called him that. We lived in Watts, California on 107th Street, where the aroma of tamales sizzled in the air, where the trucks of Japanese farmers rumbled to and from vegetable markets, where music and laughter rippled from diners and dancers at the Watts Tavern. No one really knew what to think about Uncle Sam. This man who talked to himself as he hunted through garbage heaps for things no one wanted. A rainbow of broken teapots, plates, tiles, and sparkling bottles. I collected jewels with him along the railroad tracks, sacks and sacks and sacks of them. My favorites were the tiles with blue flowers, the soda bottles with the girl in the bubbles, and the green horse. For every bag of bits, he gave me a penny. Pennies bought a lot of candy. Uncle Sam worked in a tile factory every day except Sundays and holidays. But he worked on his creation every night, every Sunday, every holiday. He took those bags of glass and smashed them. Whack, whack, whack. I watched him shove steel rods under the railroad tracks and transform them into rings. Uncle Sam was small and skinny, but his muscles were mighty. Some people called him crazy, but he wasn't. He was a magician. In broken things, he saw what no one else noticed. He found hearts in the backs of old ice cream parlor chairs, flowers in faucet handles, the sun in rusty gears. People who couldn't see the hearts and flowers wondered, why build it? Why build it? I can't tell you, he said. Why a man make the pants? Why a man make the shoes? Have you ever noticed beauty in something that maybe someone else didn't? Have you ever created something from garbage, like Simon Rodia did? Simon Rodia used his imagination, and he saw trash differently, or garbage differently than most people. He collected all of that garbage to create beautiful artwork. So think about that next time when you look at a pile of garbage. What could it be if it wasn't garbage? Could it be artwork, like Simon Rodia created? Uncle Sam talked to himself while he mixed a secret recipe for mortar. This much sand, this much cement, this much water. Cement as powdery as flour, sand as finely ground as sugar, water to bind them. He wrapped wire mesh around the poles, smoothed the cement around them, and carefully pressed a jigsaw of jewels into his batter of wet cement. day after day, year after year, working on his something big without gloves until his fingerprints were worn away. A ship appeared. A tower rose. A cactus garden bloomed. In a strange mix of Italian and English that was difficult for all of us to understand, he told us about the great towers and the ship he'd seen as a child in the parades of his village of Ribotoli, towers that were 6 stories high. If you take a look closely in these black and white photos, you'll notice the towers that Simon is referring to in his village of Ribotoli in Italy. Are they similar to the Watts Towers? I would say so. Uncle Sam worked long into the night, singing to himself, flitting from rung to rung like a firefly. "Turn out the light, Uncle Sam. I'm working up here, Marguerite." Every day, the trains passed by with tens of thousands of passengers a week, going to and from Los Angeles. The towers were Uncle Sam's stage, the passengers his audience. Dust from the train swirled around him, but he didn't let it bother him. He was in the spotlight. Another tower arose. Uncle Sam showed my children the triangles in the branches of trees. Triangles, he said, were the strongest shapes, and he built his towers with triangles, day after day, year after year. He showed me and my children the beauty of a broken angel, a bowling ball, a boot. The usefulness of an airplane wing, the pattern shells and rocks could make. Uncle Sam was like a spider weaving his web of steel and cement and lacy shadows. The 3rd tower was his last. He wrote his initials and Nuestro Pueblo in cement. Our town, a village for the world. Not long after that, Uncle Sam suddenly put away his tools and jewels and stopped building. We were all surprised. He put on a suit, pinned his life savings inside it, and gave the deed to his triangular lot with its ship and towers, fountain and gardens to a friend and walked away. We never saw Uncle Sam again. But I remember him, my Uncle Sam, my neighbor for 34 years, the dreamer. People no longer call Simon Rodia foolish and crazy. They call him a man of genius who built a gigantic flower of folk art, a man with a heart full of gratitude to the country that had invited him to dream without limits, the country that had given him the freedom to reach for the sky. Uncle Sam's Something Big is now a national landmark. This is a photo of the Watts Towers in Watts, California. And they are a national landmark, which means that they are protected from being torn down, so that other people can learn about their importance and history and why Simon Rodia created them. On this next page, I'm going to be sharing some facts about the Watts Towers. So as we learned in the story, there are 3 towers, and each of them are a different height. One tower is 99.5 feet high. That's the tallest one. The second one is 97.8 feet high. And the shortest one, which is still pretty tall, is 55 feet high. And as we learned, Simon Rodia collected garbage from all over in little bits and pieces to create the Watts Towers. And we found that he had about 6,000 bits of glass, 15,000 tiles, 10,000 seashells, and around 11,000 pieces of pottery. He collected all of this garbage over 34 years. He began his Watts Towers in the year 1921, and he completed them in the year 1955. Could you imagine how patient Simon must have been to collect all of that garbage? And now we have the Watts Towers to enjoy and learn from. And if you're ever in Watts, California, I encourage you to visit them so you can also enjoy how unique and beautiful the artwork that Simon Rodia created is. For today's activity, we're going to be creating a paper mosaic. I created a paper mosaic of a rainbow, but you can choose a different image based on what you like. Here are the supplies that you'll need. You'll need some colored paper, recyclable materials. I have some boxes and cartons that I've been collecting, but if you have different recyclable materials that you can easily cut, feel free to use those. You'll also need scissors and some glue. The first step is to cut each of the colored pieces of paper and recyclable materials into small little pieces, like so. I organize my little pieces by color so that it'll be easier to create my image when I start gluing them. Step 2, you'll add glue to your paper in the shape of what you're trying to create. I was creating a rainbow, but you can create a different design and shape based on what you like. Step 3, you glue your pieces and put the colors where you would like them. And here's my finished project once again to give you all an idea of what a paper mosaic could look like. You'll notice I added different colored pieces of paper, and I added these cut-up boxes right over here as well. I asked you all a question earlier today at the beginning of our story time. Have you ever noticed public art in your neighborhood? After today, I encourage you all to take a walk around your neighborhood and think about if there's public art around you, and if there is, what story does that public art tell? Today we learned about the Watts Towers and how they're a historic and special place and artwork for the city of Watts, California. It took Simon Rodia 34 years to create this project, and if you're ever in Watts, I encourage you to visit it. Thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you next time on Storytime with the LA Conservancy.